In this video we are going to work with typography in Maya, and we are going to use the text tool. One of the ways for you to create a text tool is, or use the text tool, is by using the poly modeling shelf. You can find the T for poly for the text tool. You may also access it through the motion graphics shelf. The text tool should show up here. For some reason my Maya is not refreshing it. But equally, you can go under create, type, and if you click on it, it'll right away create this node called type mesh. And the type mesh shows 3D version of a text. If you select that type mesh and open up your Attenuator just the way I have it open here, you'll find the transform node for it, but you also have a shape node called type 1. The type node gives you the option to create a typography, to animate or to modify. So we're just going to go and create a single letter here. I'm going to just use an arrow for this exercise. And in here, you can create a whole text and play with the attributes of the paragraph and so on and so forth. For now, I'm going to use a single letter. Of course, you can choose a typography, the font that you want to use. So that way you have some freedom of the style that you think you'd like to use, which allows for a lot of interesting letters. And let me go back to another one that is a little bit easier. And let's use that one for now. And I have a typography here, and you can see that under these tabs I have different options for you to generate certain elements related to the typography. In this case, we're going to just focus on the geometry part, and although right now this is already geometry, it's a polygonal mesh. I can create from that curves. I wanted to create curves to make a NURBS object. I can create, increase the resolution for the curve so that it reads the shape the best possible. I can click on this tab, and I can just make sure that the type is deformable, and this is something that's important for us, because if we want to animate it, we want to check that on so that we can see the typography producing a reliable geometry to deform it. At this moment my Maya is just trying to do that. I'm going to just give it a moment. Hopefully it'll be able to create it soon. Normally what this process does is to allow for this front piece, which has no breaking of polygons. The program goes and calculates and gives you usually triangles to solve the geometry. I'm going to pause my capture for a moment to let the program calculate, and then I'm going to unpause it so that when it is ready. I had to go and change the typography because my Maya crashed. It's possible that the typography that I selected gave it a hard time, but now I have changed to this other one, and I'm going to use a deformable type here, and automatically you see, let me just turn on wireframe and shader where you can see it. Maya generated a polygonal subdivision of that face the best it can. It's not ideal. There are some things there that I would not leave as it is, but at least it gives you the opportunity to try to animate this. So with that, just like that, I already have an object that is easy to modify. I can play with some of these values to change the results of it, but for now I'm going to have it like that. I also have the opportunity to create additional effects, like let's say bevels. So I can bevel my typography. So I give it a bit of a different result, and of course I can try to modify the bevel effect. That way, um, the typography might have even an more interesting result. So some of them may work better than other ones, but in essence, it is a good chance to play with it. So I invite you to go and play with the different um, attributes to create your type. So now that I have my typography ready, or my letters ready, I'm going to simply delete the history of it, delete by type history, and when I do that, it loses the typography component and it becomes just a pure model. Why do you want to delete history? Because for animation, it's always a good idea to try to keep it without having to read all that information that it requires. Here I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to modify this one because I'm noticing that my typography just got on this long stretch too much of the same distance, or of a distance without subdivisions, while this one is very divided. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to use my multi-cut tool. I'm going to try to connect at least say half that way there. Hopefully I can go and bring it to match the other side, giving me a little bit of an extra subdivision there. You can plan on some more of that, maybe trying to find other ways to cut here to make it in case you need to deform it there. I'm going to delete the history of this object one more time. And now we're going to simply create a basic rig for it so that I can animate it. So my object, I'm going to place it in the center of the world. I'm just going to move it right now. It's going to move there, but I'm going to move it in the center of the world. I'm going to say modify freeze transformation. That way the object is, the center of the object becomes, is all zero out. And then I'm going to say center viewpoint, that the viewpoint becomes the middle of the letter. And I'm going to, on the front view, I'm going to create a rig for it. So how do you create a rig for a typography? It's just, it depends on how you plan to animate it. Say, for example, I want this letter to be behaving as if it was more like legs. So I would consider them legs when I say maybe there's going to be a joint here, there's going to be a joint there, and they are going to deform the letter with a series of joints in that direction, right, going in that direction. And this one may have another one right here, and right there, and right there, and they connect here somehow. That is one option, so that I could just treat both legs independently for animation. It may be that I don't want it to be like that. It may be that I'm going to make it so that the the object is going to be hopping from the bottom up, and I may just try to generate a joint that will have another joint going the direction where the root joint is going to be right down here. And you may say, how do you do that on the other side? And you could try generating, maybe since joints don't render, you can try generating one joint that goes from here to here, and that one will do the same trick high up. So you will have two chains of joints, so the one and the other one could kind of squish on both directions and allow it to animate that way. So it depends on really what your plan or animation is, and of course by the time you are rigging, you already have an idea of what you're going to be animating with, and hopefully you have already storyboard created. So let me try creating from the rigging menu set. We'll try the version in which it goes down. So the main joints are going to be at the top. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to create 1, 2. I'm holding my shift key so that I make them straight. 3, 4, 5 joints there. And then I'm going to continue creating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 joints. It doesn't have to be the same number, but this one gives me a decent. And then maybe I'm going to create one right in the middle here, to which both this one is going to connect to that one by just simply saying parent, selecting the one that is going to be the child first, and then select this one, and I select the one that's going to be parent. And as I just stated there, I can just hit my P key on my keyboard. That way this guy becomes the parent of that join chain. If I look at it here, the joints are slightly out of my letter, so I'm going to move my geometry one more time back to make sure that the joints are completely inside of the object. So if I do that, when again we'll say modify freeze transformation, that way the values will go back to 0, and I'm going to just bind it. And binding it means just simply selecting the controller, the joint, the root joint, which is the one from which everything comes down, and I'm going to open them up. I'm actually going to rename them very quickly, so I'm going to call this one R root. I'm going to say R underscore join 01. I'm going to copy that one, join 02, join 03, join 04, join 05, join 06, join 07, join 09, join 10, and join 11. Alright, so I got everything named, the good idea, and in this one I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it R geometry. Okay, so now I'm going to select my root, shift select my geometry, and in this case I'm going to shift and go to the rigging menu set. I'm going to say skin, bind skin. I can open it up just to look and see what it has. Normally I wouldn't change it. Hierarchy means they're going to connect all joins to that geometry. And I'm going to change the influences here to say just 3. What this is that is the number of joins that will be affecting every vertex. So I'm saying bind skin. And now I have already created an object that will be able to deform. It's not perfect, but it gives you the opportunity to animate. You can animate it all up and down by doing this, and then play with that, with those to animate that. Let's spend just a few minutes with the weight painting, and the weight painting is pretty much the influence that these joints will provide over the typography. So you see that, for example, if I move this joint, if I rotate that joint, and just do a rotation, this part is affecting. I don't want that to be. I want it to be affecting only this section. So what is happening is that, of course, this joint is offering influence on this one. So I'm going to select this piece of geometry. I'm going to go on instead of the rigging menu set, on the skin, I'm going to go say paint skin weights. Weight means is the connection between, I'm going to go to 5 so I can 5 on my screen so I can see my object in shaded mode. The weight is how much weight is each part, each joint applying on specific vertices. So let me try to click on, for example, what this joint is. That joint is joint number 9. So let me try to do it again, weight painting. Here's the tool. I'm just going to. So joint number 9 is not offering full influence on this area. So I'm going to say join number 9. I'm going to add influence or completely 100% value, and I'm going to change the scale. I'm going to just change it. You see that black means that black is whatever is white is going to have more influence connected to join number 9, which is that one join. I'm going to hold my B key so I can change the object, or the size of my brush, and just by doing it there, then I can reduce the opacity to say 0.3. That way I don't continue painting 100%, but just little by little, and that joint now is offering influence of full control over that section. So if you want to clean up and paint and help it a little bit, you can go and say smooth. Maya tries to kind of generate a better transition in some of those weights. So what it does, it kind of distributes the weight between the joints that are influencing those objects. So now if I go back and I try rotating this object, I should not affect at least the corner that I thought I was affecting. It's affecting still a little bit, so I can go back and correct those objects a bit more. Let me click on the geometry to select it. There we go. And I'm going to use there are some joints here that are not receiving full influence, so I'm going to go back to add. Where I add influence, hold my V key, and I'm going to try to add influence on those objects. There we go. You can go section by section and prove how much influence you want each joint to offer over the geometry that you have near to it. I'll try joint 7. Joint 7 has some influence here, so I'm just going to try to repaint it there a little bit, just to add a better result there. And then joint 6. Joint 5 is at the bottom here, so I'm just going to paint joint 5 to allow it to have enough influence right there. Joint 4, just making sure that my influences are a little bit more effective. Joint 3, I'm just painting, of course. Look, I painted by accident over there, so I'm just gonna undo that. Oh, look at that, I don't want to do that. So I want to just do it here very carefully without spinning over to the other side. Let me try doing this one more time. Try joint 3 here. And then joint 2. Okay. And then join 1. It's a little bit odd because the geometry could have had more geometry there. It didn't cut enough, but probably for this demonstration we'll do what I needed to do. and then root just paints on that section, which is that beginning section there. So again, I'm using this add, and right now adding 0.3, which is kind of 30% of the weight every time my brush passes. So now if I go and try with this one more time, I can move that one and I can move that one, and they should not be affecting the, the rest of the object. So now you can try to animate and fine tune some of the weight paints on some of those. So you can try to get, here's for example, this one has some influence on those still. So I can just simply move this one like that, select the geometry, use, and that one will be the joint 3 or joint 2, maybe joint 3, and then I just add an influence to joint 3 there. It's a combination of joint 3 between joint 3 and joint 2. You see that just by painting a couple of times, then that corrects the problem. Yeah, wrinkles are very bad on there, but it's just, this is just a low possibility. It's a low, not so heavy deformer that you probably don't want to go that far. I'm going to just bring this one back by just changing the rotation value to 0. Since I didn't rotate them before I moved before I bound them to the geometry. And that's it. That's pretty much the way you create a rig for your joint using a basic skeleton, and that when you go to do animation, you will animate the skeleton, you will not animate the geometry. Only the skeleton will be the one that you're going to be using to create keyframes for animation. Alright, I'm going to just save my file and leave it there for now, and hopefully this will give you some guidance to create the rig for your typography.